Hey there. So this tutorial is going to show you very quickly and easily how to use an alpha texture from Photoshop in ZBrush to create quick and easy normal maps. So let's get started. Here I have a alpha of a cracked textured surface. Um, Eventually what I'm going to use this for is to fake some cracks on another surface in the Unreal Engine 4 map that I'm creating. I have a street texture, which is like clean asphalt, but the city that I am creating is supposed to be post-apocalyptic, so the streets would not be as pristine as they are. Um, so that's why I'm going to add these cracks after the fact. Instead of using the layered shader in UE4, I can use this alternate method, which also allows me to add these cracks on top of any other structures in the map as well. But I'll show you that in another tutorial. For now, I'm just going to show you how to create the depth information using the normal mapping in ZBrush by utilizing Projection Master, which is a really great tool. So first off, we have the alpha here. What you're going to need to do is to create a new layer, and you want to invert it because ZBrush is going to use the alpha, the white part of this, for the depth information, whereas if I used this, the white here would be the depth information, which would be the opposite of what I'm trying to create. So we take that, save it out as use a JPEG or a Targa. I'm using JPEG for now. We will call this, let's see, I've got one here, cracks test 2. Let's just call this cracks test 3 and save it. I usually use maximum because then I always start high and work down if I need to downsize. So now that we have that texture saved as a JPEG, I'm going to go into ZBrush, and let me just start this over to show you how I create the plane for that. I'm actually going to start in Maya next, and create the plane that I'm going to use in ZBrush to create the texture. So you can create a plane. Just going to change the size here, and subdivisions are going to just be 1, so it's a single quad. The actual geometry of this is going to be brought into the Unreal 4 engine, so that way I want to make sure that I just keep it a single quad to keep the draw calls, a little lighter, because if you use a lot of these, then obviously you're adding a polygonal geometry into your scene, which will slow it down if you have enough of it, but a single polygon doesn't do much at all as far as the speed. So I have that here. I'm going to just create that and export it for now. So export that. You want to export as an OBJ, because the tools that you import into ZBrush have to be an OBJ file. So I have a cracks test 2. I'm going to change that again to cracks test 3. Just name it whatever you want, just as long as you know where it is, and save it out. Go into ZBrush. So now what I want to do is import what I just created. So I have that right here, cracks test 3.obj. Open it up. So I'm assuming you're probably you should be familiar with ZBrush enough to know how to use the interface here. Otherwise, you can just kind of follow along. I'm going to click and drag inside the viewport. Now you can't see anything because it's just a plane and it's sitting on its side. So it doesn't look like I just did anything, but if I switch to edit mode by hitting T and move this, you can see that the plane is actually in the window. So I'm going to center that in the screen. Okay, and what you want to do is, you can see how there's only 4 active points in this mesh because I used a single polygon. But to capture as much detail as possible, you want to subdivide the geometry quite a few times. So if I subdivide it once, you see it changes to 9 points instead of just the 4. I'm actually going to do this a few more times and get it up to like 1.05 million points. So if you can see, if I looked close, you would see that it's been subdivided, but you can see how much it's been subdivided here. So we got that plane subdivided. Now what I want to do is use this nifty projection master function in ZBrush. So click that to open it. You have the projection master screen here. Usually the default shows its color that you can use to project. What I want to do is deformation because we're adding depth to this object. So I shut off the color and I have deformation and I want normalized, and you don't need double-sided since it's just going to be a single plane. And you don't want fade, you don't want that checked because you want it crisp all the way to the edges. So with those two checked, you hit drop now. Now the plane is sitting in projection master, and now we are going to apply the mask, the alpha mask that we created in Photoshop. So we go to alpha and we want to import our mask, and that was cracks test 3, and we open and you can see that that is in here as the alpha now. Now the other thing we want to change is the stroke type. We want to do drag direct. Click that. Now I usually just try to eyeball this. Center your cursor in the middle of the plane. Then you want to left click and drag, and you can see that it pulls out the alpha. Now what I just did, I actually added height where the white was, but I don't want to do that. I want to add depth where the white is. The reason it did height is because it's a default of Z add up here, so it adds height. What I want is Z sub to subtract the height. So I can control Z to get rid of that. Make sure that I have Z sub selected. And the intensity, what I learned in school is that when you apply depth information from ZBrush into other applications like Maya or UE4, you really want to try to overemphasize the depth because it doesn't always come out as crisp or as heavy in the other applications. So like if it were to work perfectly, I'd probably keep it at like 5 or 6, but I want to overemphasize so that it's clearly apparent that it's depth information being added to a texture. So I'm going to crank it up to 10. You don't really need mRGB. This is color information. We just need the height. So we'll go ahead. We have the Z sub, so it's going to subtract height and an intensity of 10, and center on that and pull, by left clicking and dragging. There. So that's our alpha being projected onto this plane, adding the depth information with the added intensity of 10. So with that set, you're going to click Projection Master again, and you want to pick up the detail that you added. So you're going to hit Pick Up Now, and presto, you have depth information on this plane. So pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and create a normal map now. Now to do that, what you first need to do is you have to bring the subdivisions back down to the lowest original, which was the 4 points. So to do that, you go into Geometry, and you can either pull the slider, or you can just hit this low res all the way down to the original subdivision of 4. Now with that at the lowest subdivision, we're going to create the normal map. So you click Normal Map. You want tangent selected, smooth UVs, and S-normals selected, these three selected, and nothing else selected. Then you click Create Normal Map. And there you can see, I'm not exactly sure why it kind of shrunk down. I think it had to do with something with when I subdivided the actual plane got smaller, but it won't matter because we can adjust for that in Photoshop. So with this normal map created, I want to clone it, because when I clone it, it will drop into the texture node, which we need to use to export it. So you click Clone, and you can see it sitting over here in the current texture. So with that, you go into Textures up here. You can see that the map is here, and we want to export it. Before you export it though, what ZBrush does when it creates a normal map is it inverts the UV, so it flips it. So you need to flip that back before we export it. So you're going to flip vertical, and that will make it match our original alpha map. So now we can export it, and I'm going to call it Cracks Test 3 Normal, and I'll just leave it as a Photoshop file. Save it, and there should be a normal map in that folder now. So we're done with ZBrush. I don't want to bother saving it. So to take a look at it, let's go into Photoshop, go into File, Open, and here it is right here in the folder, Cracks Test 3 Normal. Open that up. Here it is. So I want to make sure that I crop this so that it is the same dimensions as the original alpha. So I will go ahead and bring up my grid, and I'm going to drag down the guides so the selection tool will make it a lot easier to select this and crop it. Put my guides on each side. So that's the actual area that we need. Take the selection tool, select it, image, crop. So here's that full texture of the normal map. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to actually copy that, bring it back over here into our file with the original alpha, paste it, and just size it so that it matches up again. sure it's kind of lined up with everything. That'll be important later on, because what we're going to do is use this alpha to mask out all the opacity of the texture except for the cracks, so that way we can create the illusion of cracks with depth information on top of an existing textured object, without having to add another layered shader to that object. We're just going to lay it right on top of it with that plane. But anyway, so there's the normal map, and I'll just show you real quick. Actually, I guess I don't need to create a JPEG, but if we go back into the file here in Maya, I'm going to bring up the Hypershade, create a new Lambert, call that cracks test 3 to be consistent, and just underscore mat. And for the bump mapping, go into the file, and you want to add cracks test 3 normal. Okay, so with that selected, we apply that texture to the object, and then I'm going to switch to the high render version, and you can see you just got to switch, remember to switch this to tangent space normals to get the texture information based on the normals. You can crank up the depth. And there's the normal map showing the depth information. So I guess that's it for this tutorial. I will show you later in another tutorial how I use this to create cracks in the street in the map in Unreal Engine 4. Thanks for your time.